It was just past 2 p.m., and Johannesburg was burning under the unforgiving African sun. The air hung thick with heat, dust, and the chaos of the city. Car horns blaring, vendors screaming prices, babies crying, and radios competing for dominance. Amid the madness stood a young woman, Thandai, pressed against the edge of a cracked sidewalk, sweat trickling down her temple. She was dressed like anyone else on the street. Worn jeans, plain sandals, a faded t-shirt that stuck to her back. No one gave her a second look. And that was exactly what she wanted. But what she hadn't planned for was this moment, the one that would shatter her illusion of invisibility. She was just waiting to cross the street, quietly observing life when she spotted her. An elderly woman, barely 5 feet tall, struggling in the middle of the road, her legs shaking under the weight of her years and fear. Taxis zipped past her like she was part of the scenery. No one stopped. No one cared. Instinct took over. Thandai moved fast, grabbing the old woman's arm gently. "Mama, let me help you cross," she whispered. Together, they began to walk, dodging speeding cars and aggressive drivers who didn't give a damn. One car honked so close Thandai could feel the wind of it whip her braids. But they made it. Almost. As they stepped onto the curb, her elbow barely brushed against the shiny black mirror of a parked Mercedes-Benz. She didn't even notice. But he did. The car door flew open like a gunshot, and out stormed a man in a crisp all-black suit, expensive, arrogant, and angry as hell. His sunglasses came off with a sharp flick, and his eyes locked onto hers like laser beams. "Are you fucking blind?" he barked, stepping forward. She blinked, stunned, still holding the old woman's arm. "Sir, I didn't. Do you even know how much this fucking car costs?" he roared, his voice slicing through the noise. Before she could respond, his hand flew up and cracked across her face. Gasps. Silence. Everything stopped. The crowd froze. The heat vanished. All she could hear was the ringing in her ears and the pounding of her heart. Her cheek flamed with pain. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. The plastic pharmacy bag in her hand hit the ground with a whisper. Her world tilted. He stood over her like a king on his battlefield, breathing heavy, cleaning the mirror like she was filth. "People like you, always touching things you can't afford," he hissed. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. The crowd stared, phones raised, no one helped. Not one soul. She wasn't a person anymore. She was just a scene, another viral video waiting to happen. "My daughter, leave him," the old woman whispered. "God is watching." But right then, Thandai didn't care if God saw. She only felt rage, shame, and something deeper, a shift. That slap wasn't just across the face. It was across everything she believed in. And the worst part? He didn't even know her name. That night, the lights of the Mbeki estate flickered against the quiet hills of northern Johannesburg. A sprawling mansion, marble floors, chandelier hallways, security at every gate. But behind one closed bedroom door, Thandai sat in silence, her face half lit by the glow of her phone screen. The video was everywhere. Someone had caught the slap. Not just the sound, the angle. The moment her head snapped sideways. The plastic bag dropping. Her frozen eyes. The man in the suit cleaning his mirror like she didn't even exist. She didn't even do anything, bro. This guy's a psycho. Typical rich asshole. Bet nothing happens to him. Who is this girl? She deserves justice. Comments flooded in. Outrage, sympathy, blind rage from strangers, but none of it mattered. Not really. Because no one knew the truth. She wasn't just some random girl on the street. She was Thandai Mbeki, daughter of Zwelinzima Mbeki, CEO of Mbeki Holdings, one of the most powerful business families in South Africa. She had grown up surrounded by security guards, gala dinners, international schools. She wasn't supposed to get slapped in public like that. She wasn't supposed to feel powerless. And yet she had. Because for the past 2 weeks, Thandai had been doing something radical, something her parents would never have approved of. She had stripped herself of wealth, of privilege, of image, dressed down, wore second-hand shoes, rode in minibus taxis, shopped at corner spaza shops, just to see how the world would treat her if she looked like everyone else. And now she knew. That slap burned deeper than skin, peeled away illusion. She touched her cheek, now darkened with a bruise, and looked into the mirror. Not the marble-framed mirror in her designer room, but the mirror inside herself. He didn't even ask my name, she whispered to her reflection. She could still hear his voice. People like you. Always touching things you can't afford. The audacity. The venom in it. And what hurt the most? She had once believed people were better than that. She had believed her country, her city had changed. That the divide between rich and poor was just a statistic. That kindness didn't depend on class. She was wrong. The knock on her door startled her. Her father's voice, soft but firm. "Thandie, we need to talk. There's something important." She didn't respond. Didn't want to. She felt like her soul had been stepped on. And now her father wanted to talk? Instead, she turned off her phone, got under the covers, and let the darkness swallow her whole. But sleep didn't come. Only one thought repeated itself. He'll never even remember my face. But fate? Fate was just getting started. Luthando Dlamini didn't think twice about it. By the time he got back into his Mercedes and slammed the door, the girl and the slap were already gone from his mind. She was just another nobody in the way. One more poor soul playing pedestrian on his turf. Johannesburg was a city for lions and he was wearing the suit. His engine roared back to life, the air conditioning blasting away the heat. His reflection flickered on the touchscreen dash. Smooth. Composed. Untouchable. Except, there was this weird tightness in his chest. He brushed it off. Drove straight to his corner office on the 25th floor, where the view of the Sandton skyline always reminded him why he worked so damn hard. The walls were lined with awards, magazine covers with his face, and a minimalist shelf full of expensive unread books. His assistant greeted him with fake enthusiasm. "Mr. Dlamini, social media is kind of blowing up." He waved her off. "If it's not a lawsuit or a brand deal, I don't give a shit." But by 7 p.m. it wasn't just blowing up. It was on fire. The slap video had hit over 400,000 views on TikTok. By morning it would be viral. Hashtags were trending. Hashtag Mercedes slap, hashtag powertripso, hashtag who is she. He watched the clip once, just once. His own hand coming down hard. The look on her face. Her silence. Her bag hitting the pavement. Something about it clawed at him like fingernails scraping glass. She hadn't even fought back. No screaming. No chaos. Just this terrible stillness. And the old lady? Her whisper echoed. "God is watching. Damn it." By midnight, his PR team had already drafted a bland apology he refused to post. Apologize to who? A girl who doesn't even own real shoes. But the backlash was louder now. Emails from investors. A call from the board. A threat from their biggest retail partner. And worse, his mother called. "Luthando," she said slowly, "what have you done?" He didn't have an answer. In the shower that night, steam fogging the mirror, Luthando stared at himself. Not at the suit. Not the perfect fade in his hair. Not the Rolex lying on the counter. He saw the face of a man who had hit someone weaker and walked away like it was nothing. And for the first time in years, he wondered if success had made him into something uglier than he ever meant to be. He didn't remember the girl's name. He never even asked. But something about her wouldn't leave him. Not her voice. Not the look in her eyes. And not the feeling that somewhere out there she was still hurting, and the world was starting to see him for who he really was. The morning sun crawled through the velvet curtains of the Mbeki estate, painting golden streaks across the white marble. Thandie sat at the breakfast table, untouched toast on her plate, the news playing quietly on the flat screen. Her name wasn't in the headlines yet, but the video? Still everywhere. She tried to move past it, bury it beneath journal articles and hot tea, but her body still flinched every time someone raised their voice. Her father entered the room like a man preparing for battle, tailored gray suit, phone pressed to his ear, talking about shipments and margins and equity as if the world hadn't tilted 2 days ago. He ended the call, gave her a tight smile and sat down. "Thandie, there's something we need to talk about." She didn't respond. She knew that tone. It was never good. "Since you were a child," he began, "your mother and I made an arrangement. With the Dlaminis." Her stomach flipped. "The Dlaminis?" "Yes. Old friends. Powerful family. We agreed you would marry their son when the time came. And now it's time. She blinked. Hard. Like she hadn't heard him right. Dad, you're joking. Tell me you're joking. You're 26. You finished school. It's not just about marriage. It's about legacy, partnership, securing both families' futures. Thandai's chest tightened. Her voice was low. What's his name? Luthando. The world stopped. Her blood turned cold. Luthando Dlamini. The man who slapped her across the face in public. The man who humiliated her like trash in the street. She stood up so fast her chair screeched against the tiles. Absolutely not. Thandai. He hit me, Dad. On the street. In front of a crowd. That man humiliated me. And you want me to marry him? Zwelinzima paused. For the first time, confusion crossed his face. What are you talking about? That viral video you keep ignoring? That's me. That's your daughter getting slapped like a stray dog. And the man behind it? That's your future son-in-law. Silence. He turned pale. The air shifted. You must be mistaken. I wish I was. Across town in the Dlamini residence, a sleek, modern compound nestled in the hills, Luthando's parents were having the same conversation, only without the emotional explosion. His father, Mr. Dlamini, poured whiskey into a crystal tumbler at 9 a.m. like it was orange juice. You'll marry her, he said flatly. The deal is done. I don't even know her, Luthando replied. His mother added gently. She's the Mbeki girl. Brilliant. Beautiful. Educated in Cape Town. You'll grow to love her. But Luthando barely heard them, because in the back of his mind something clicked. The girl. The slap. The silence. No way, he whispered to himself. It can't be her. But it was. And they were already entangled, not by love, not by fate, but by a promise made long ago. The restaurant was far too beautiful for the kind of storm that was about to break. Crystal chandeliers hung low above white linen tables. A baby grand piano played soft jazz in the corner. The waiters moved like shadows, silent, polished, professional. It was the kind of place where deals were made over imported wine, where reputations lived or died in a single handshake. And yet, Thandai's hands were ice cold. She sat beside her father, back straight, face painted with elegance and silence. Her mother had picked out her dress, a rich emerald green that hugged her body like it knew what kind of armor it needed to be. Her hair was pinned perfectly. Her lip gloss shimmered. On the outside, she looked every bit the heir to the Mbeki legacy. On the inside, she was screaming. She had agreed to show up. Just show up. For her parents. To play nice. To see how it goes. But nothing could have prepared her for what was about to walk through that door. Across town, Luthando adjusted his cufflinks in the back seat of his Audi, trying to look calm even as something clenched in his stomach. His mother kept talking, some speech about making a good impression, smiling more, being charming. He wasn't listening. He was trying to shake a feeling. A sharp gut punch kind of instinct he couldn't explain. Like something was about to hit him that he wouldn't come back from. And then he stepped inside. There were handshakes. Greetings. Glasses clinked. A toast was made. And then Mr. Mbeki's voice rose, full of pride. Thandai, this is Luthando Dlamini, the young man we've told you so much about. Your husband-to-be. Thandai turned slowly. Their eyes met. And for one long brutal second the world stopped spinning. The jazz faded. The clinking died. Her throat dried up. His eyes widened. The color drained from his face. She didn't smile. Neither did he. He knew. In that instant he knew. She was the girl. The one on the street. The one he slapped without a second thought. The one who never said a word, but whose silence was louder than any scream. Is everything all right? Her father asked, sensing the shift. Yes, Luthando said quickly, voice flat. We're just surprised. Thandai stood up, every inch of her trembling beneath that perfect dress. Excuse me, she said, her voice steady but sharp. I need some air. She walked away, heels clicking like a countdown clock, chest burning. Luthando hesitated just a second, then followed. Out on the balcony, the night air slapped harder than he ever had. She turned to face him, arms crossed, jaw locked. Did you even recognize me that day? She asked coldly. He stared at her, broken open, every excuse dying in his throat. Thandai, why? You slapped me in public. Humiliated me. And now I'm supposed to sit across from you like nothing happened. I didn't know. That's the problem, she snapped. You didn't know. You didn't care. I was nothing to you. Just another face in your way. He said nothing. There was nothing to say. She stepped closer, eyes locked on his. You didn't have to know me to respect me. And with that she turned, walked back inside, leaving him alone on the balcony, face to face with the man he had become. Luthando stood frozen on the balcony, breath fogging in the night air, the city sprawling below like a carpet of fire. He couldn't feel his hands, couldn't feel his face. All he could feel was her voice echoing inside him. You didn't have to know me to respect me. Those words hit harder than any slap. He'd come to this dinner prepared to fake his way through another power move. Smile, charm, clink glasses, secure them Becky merger through marriage. Just another chess piece on the corporate board. But he hadn't expected her. Not that girl. Not her. And still something didn't sit right. It wasn't just guilt. It wasn't just shame. There was something familiar. Her eyes. The way she looked at him. Not just with anger but something buried underneath. Something old. Downstairs in the empty hallway outside the restaurant's powder room, Thandai leaned against the wall, chest rising and falling, trying to breathe through the rage. Her hands shook. Not just from humiliation or betrayal, no. Something deeper. She had looked into his eyes and felt something she hadn't felt in over a decade. Recognition. Like her bones remembered him before her brain did. You've got to be kidding me, she whispered. A memory crept in, soft but sharp, the jacaranda tree. The village yard. Her small hand holding another's. A voice high-pitched and teasing. Thandai, if you ever leave, you better come back. Another voice, her own, laughing. I'll come back. But you better not forget me. And then the bracelet. That tiny handmade woven thread. Her most prized thing. She'd given it to him on the last day. Right before the car took her to the city. Right before her whole life changed. She hadn't thought of that day in years. That boy, her first real friend, had faded with time like a dream half remembered. Until tonight. Her breath caught. No, she whispered aloud. It can't be. Back upstairs, Luthando stormed into the men's room like a man possessed. He pulled his phone from his pocket, scrolling madly through old photos, old cloud backups, anything. He found nothing. But then something flashed in his head. A bracelet. Faded blue and red threads. A girl's hand tying it on his wrist under a blooming jacaranda tree. His chest tightened. No way, he muttered. That was her. His legs nearly buckled under the weight of it. Thandai. She wasn't just the girl he slapped on the street. She was Thandai, his childhood best friend. His secret-keeping, bug-collecting, mud-playing, mango-stealing ride-or-die from summers under the African sky. The one he swore he'd never forget. And he had. He fucking had. Down in the parking lot, Thandai stood staring at the moon, when a voice behind her cracked the air. You're Thandai. From the village. Aren't you? She turned slowly. His face was pale. His voice shaking. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. He already knew. I didn't recognize you, he whispered. But I recognized you, she said quietly. And you broke my heart twice. Silence fell between them like a wall of glass. Clear, sharp, and impossible to ignore. Thandai's words still echoed in the cool Johannesburg night air. You broke my heart twice. Luthando stood across from her, unable to breathe properly. The world had slowed again, just like it did the moment he raised his hand on that street. But now the shame didn't just burn, it hollowed him out. He looked at her, really looked, and saw two versions of her layered together. The fierce woman in front of him, eyes locked and unflinching. And the little girl from the village who used to laugh so loud. The birds flew off the jacaranda tree. He ran a hand through his hair, voice barely holding together. I didn't know it was you. If I had. She cut him off sharply. If you had? What, Luthando? You'd have been kinder? You'd have held your temper? Why does it have to take knowing someone to treat them like a human being? He winced. Because she was right. There was no defense. No clever comeback. No legal team could draft a statement for what he felt now. I was an asshole, he admitted quietly. You still are, she snapped, eyes flaring. He nodded. Took the hit. You're not wrong. There it was again, the stillness. But now it wasn't silence born of shock. It was the silence that follows a crack. A deep one. The kind that either splits something apart or lets light in. She turned away from him, her voice quieter now. I used to wear that bracelet every day, she said, almost to herself. Until the threads frayed. Until it smelled like smoke and sunlight and dirt from our village. And I kept believing you remembered. She glanced back at him, eyes rimmed red, but refusing to cry. But you didn't. You forgot everything. Luthando stepped forward slowly, careful not to invade her space. I remembered too late, he said. And I'll hate myself for that for a long time. He pulled something from his coat pocket. The bracelet. Frayed. Worn. But still whole. Her breath caught. You kept it. It's the only thing I never lost, he said. Even when I lost myself. They stood there, no more words. Just weight. Just years. Just wounds that still bled under the surface. And then her voice, soft but steady. You don't get to fix this in a night, Luthando. I know. This isn't some PR stunt. This isn't a merger. I know. So why are you really here? He met her eyes, steady now, stripped of ego. Because I want to remember who I was when I was with you. And figure out how to become him again. The words hung there, raw and honest. For the first time since everything broke, Thandai didn't walk away. She didn't forgive him. Not yet. But she stayed. And sometimes staying is the first thread in stitching something back together. They didn't speak for 3 days. After that night under the stars, Thandai returned to her flat in Rosebank, locked the door, and buried herself in silence. The world outside was loud, louder than ever. The video of the slap was now being recut, overdubbed with commentary, reaction videos, analysis. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had something to say. But no one really knew anything. Especially not about what happened on that balcony. About the bracelet. About the way Luthando looked at her. Not with pride, not with arrogance. But like a man desperate to hold on to the last thread of something real. Still, Thandai wasn't ready. Forgiveness didn't come like a lightning strike. It was a slow crawl through broken glass. Across the city, Luthando sat in the boardroom of Lux Style, surrounded by executives who used to admire him. Now they avoided eye contact. A senior investor leaned forward with cold eyes. You're a liability now. The only reason you're still sitting here is because of your name and that Becky engagement. Luthando didn't flinch. Didn't argue. He knew. The company he'd built was starting to crack from the inside. And all the charm in the world couldn't fix it. What they didn't know was that the engagement wasn't real anymore. Not in any way that mattered. The papers hadn't been signed. The alliance hadn't been finalized. Thandai could walk away at any moment. And he'd let her if she chose to. But still a part of him hoped. That weekend, a letter arrived at Thandai's door. Not a text. Not an email. A real letter, handwritten, folded neatly, sealed with care. I know I don't deserve your time. But I'm asking anyway. There's a place I've been working on. It's not fancy. No headlines. Just something real. If you want to see it, come. If not, I'll understand. But I'll be there every Saturday. Hoping. L. She read it twice. Then again. Her fingers lingered on the paper. It wasn't the apology that moved her. It was the humility in the asking. He wasn't begging. He wasn't selling. He was just showing up. And so, the next Saturday she showed up too. The place was nothing like the high-rises and brand launch events he used to live in. It was a converted warehouse, turned into a community space, part shelter, part youth center. No logo. No luxury. Just kids laughing, playing. A volunteer handing out fruit. And in the back, sweeping paint buckets off the floor, was Luthando. In sneakers. Covered in dust. Smiling. When he looked up and saw her, his expression didn't light up with triumph. It softened with disbelief. You came. She crossed her arms. Don't make a big deal out of it. I'm just here to see if you actually do more than talk. He nodded. No comeback. No ego. Fair. For the first time in weeks she smiled. Just a little. There was a long way to go. But maybe, just maybe, it wouldn't be walked alone. By the third Saturday, Thandai was showing up before noon. At first she told herself it was about the kids, about the purpose, the need. Not about him. Never about him. But every time she walked into that dusty old community center and saw Lithando in jeans, no suit, no show, helping a teenager patch a broken window or sitting in a corner explaining algebra to a kid who barely spoke, something shifted. He wasn't trying to impress her. He wasn't trying to charm his way back in. He was just showing up. And staying. Quietly. Consistently. The same way she used to believe people should. Still, she kept her walls up. They talked in short sentences. Mostly about logistics. The roof needs patching. Leave it. I'll get to it. That kid in the corner? He hasn't eaten today. I'll fix it. No flirting. No softness. Not yet. But sometimes she caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. And sometimes she let him. On the fourth Saturday, her father called. The Dlaminis are pushing for the engagement ceremony. Her stomach turned. We're not ready. It's not about ready, Thandie. It's about timing. Optics. Damage control. The longer you delay, the more power you lose in this narrative. There it was again, the narrative. Like her life was a press release. A brand partnership. But this wasn't a merger. This was her heart. And it was still bruised. Meanwhile, across the city, Lithando faced his own battlefield. His board had given him a deadline. Finalize the Becky engagement or step down. No more middle ground. This relationship is your last buffer, one investor said bluntly. People may forgive a slap, but they don't forgive a fall from relevance. He didn't respond, because for the first time in years relevance didn't matter. Only Thandie did. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the kids at the center filed out, Thandie stayed behind. She stood by the window watching the shadows stretch across the floor. They want us to make it official, she said without turning around. Lithando stopped mid-sweep. I know. You didn't tell me. I figured you already had 100 reasons to walk away. Didn't want to give you one more. She turned now, facing him fully. And what do you want? He looked at her, no smirk, no charm, just truth. I want to fix what I broke. But only if you want that too. A long pause. The kind that held weight. Do you even know how to love someone without hurting them first? She asked. It wasn't cruel. It was honest. Raw. And he didn't flinch. No, he admitted. But I'm learning. She exhaled slowly. The air between them felt warmer now. Lighter. Almost like trust. Good, she said. Because if we're doing this, we're doing it on my terms. Whatever they are. I'm in. And no more press. No family pressure. No PR games. Just a whatever us even means right now. Deal, he said and held out his hand. She stared at it, then took it. Just for a second, but long enough. They thought they had more time. More time to keep things quiet. To figure it out on their own. To heal in private. But Johannesburg wasn't built for secrets. Especially not when the secret involved the daughter of a corporate giant and the CEO who slapped her on camera. It started with a blurry photo. Nothing scandalous. Just Thandie and Lithando walking side by side outside the community center. Her arms were crossed. His hands were in his pockets. They weren't even touching. But the internet didn't care. Someone snapped the pic. Another person recognized them. By the next morning it was everywhere. Enemies to lovers? Becky and Dlamini seen side by side at local shelter. Is forgiveness trending again? Girl boss forgives CEO? We have questions. The headlines weren't kind. The comments were worse. She sold out. Just another rich kid playing poor for clout. Bet he paid her off. They deserve each other. Two snakes in Gucci. Thandie stared at her phone screen for over an hour, scrolling in silence. Every meme, every repost, every brutal hot take chipped away at the little calm she had managed to build. This is why I didn't want the press, she muttered. Her mother knocked gently on the door. Thandie, your father's on the line. He says you need to get ahead of the narrative. What narrative, Ma? That I'm not allowed to have a complicated story. Meanwhile, across town, Lithando's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. His publicist had sent him 12 drafts of a joint statement. His board wanted an exclusive interview. His father wanted an engagement ring on a press release by Monday. But all he wanted was to know how Thandie was taking it. He texted her. You okay? No reply. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. Still nothing. His chest tightened. At the community center the next day, Thandao didn't show up. The second day, still no sign. By the third, Lithando was pacing outside her apartment building. Hoodie pulled low, sunglasses hiding tired eyes. When she finally came out, her face was unreadable. You followed me? No. I waited. There's a difference. She didn't smile. This isn't going to work, she said quietly. We had a small window. It was ours. But the world saw it, and now it's tainted. He stepped closer. Let them talk. Easy for you to say. You've lived in damage control for years. I'm not built for that kind of noise. I didn't choose this noise either, Thandie. No. But you caused it. That hit hard. He swallowed it. So what now? He asked. A long pause. Her voice broke when she finally answered. I don't know. She turned and walked away again. But this time it felt heavier. Like something was slipping from both their hands, and neither of them knew how to stop it. 1 week passed. Then 2. No calls. No texts. No visits to the center. It was like someone had pulled the plug on a moment that almost became something. Thandai went silent, folding herself back into old routines. Charity meetings. Speaking events. Business briefings with her father. But nothing felt the same. Nothing tasted the same. Every room she entered, she scanned for a face that wasn't there. You're distracted, her mother said one night, watching her push dinner around her plate. I'm fine. No, you're not. And it's okay. She didn't respond. Because what could she say? That she'd fallen for someone who once humiliated her? That she saw a version of him that the rest of the world still hated? That somewhere between anger and empathy, she'd opened the door to something terrifyingly fragile? Across town, Lithando shut down. He kept showing up at the shelter, but the spark was gone. The kids noticed it. The staff noticed it. He wasn't himself. He was waiting again. But waiting with hope is one thing. Waiting with guilt? That's a slow death. On the third Friday, the story flared up again. A tabloid posted a headline. Becky breaks it off. Flamini's last chance crumbles. The article claimed the engagement was dead. The merger was off, and Luxstyle stocks were starting to slide. It was half true. The engagement had never been official. But the pain? The fallout? That was real. That night, Thandai couldn't sleep. She stood by her bedroom window, watching the jacaranda tree in the courtyard sway in the wind. And she remembered something. That last day in the village. His hand in hers. The way he said, "Don't let the city change you." The way she said, "Don't forget me." And they both broke those promises. But people break. People forget. People fail. And sometimes they come back stronger. She didn't change her clothes. She just grabbed her keys, got in the car, and drove through the empty streets toward the shelter. He was there. Still sweeping floors. Alone. He looked up as she entered. His eyes tired. His body still. He didn't speak. She walked right up to him. No walls. No armor. Do you remember the last thing I said to you? Before I left the village. He nodded. Don't forget you, he whispered. And you did. I did, he admitted. But I never stopped wishing I hadn't. She looked around, the worn-out chairs, the paint peeling on the walls, the stack of books in the corner he'd brought from his apartment. You could have walked away, she said. Let me go. Let the shame swallow you whole. But you didn't. Because you're the only part of my story that was ever real, he said, voice cracking. And finally she smiled. Not big. Not loud. Just enough. She reached into her bag. Pulled out something small. The bracelet. Frayed. Tied back together with new thread. It's not perfect anymore, she said, placing it in his hand. Neither am I. He looked down at it like it was the most sacred thing he'd ever held. Does this mean? She cut him off gently this time. It means I'm tired of living in the past. And maybe, I'm ready to build something new. Not for anyone else. Not for the media. Not even for our families. She stepped closer. Just for us. And there, under flickering fluorescent lights and the smell of old paint and cheap cleaning liquid, they kissed. Not the kind of kiss meant for Instagram. Not one scripted for tabloids. Just a quiet human kiss between two people who had fallen, broken, learned, and chose to begin again. Epilogue. Months later, the headlines were forgotten. The companies moved on. But in a small, restored shelter outside Johannesburg, Thandai and Luthando hosted their first community youth summit. No suits, no cameras, just kids, hope, and the jacaranda tree planted out back in honor of where it all began. Sometimes the most beautiful stories don't start with perfection. They start with pain. And still they grow.